What's up? What's up? Welcome to the Or Upsurd podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Genuine. We up in here, starting out again, going live. We've been doing this show for a couple weeks. You probably like, I never saw them because we keep having to delete them because of all the different mistakes we making. But we keep doing it because we're trying to get it right. I think today is going to go a little bit better, especially on the sound side and the video side. Everything should work out really good. So we're going to get into all of our topics and things in discussion right now. So let's talk about the topic of discussion. Today, we are going to talk about something I was talking about earlier with somebody that I thought was very interesting. What do we do, or what do we put in place to try to stop the behavior of violence between the black community and the police? I know this subject has been a hot topic and many people have done something on this subject. I'm definitely sure about that. But I'm going to just try to put my 2 cents in, and maybe my 2 cents actually adds up to something to help us make a change. So I'm going to be talking about that subject in particular today on many different aspects. And I'm also going to probably play a couple different beat tracks while we're waiting on people to try to call into the show. We'll be just doing that through the whole conversation and the whole talk. If nobody calls in, that's okay. We still are out actively promoting and need your help, and promoting to get people to call in and say, you should check this guy out and see if you want to call in and talk about his topics. All right. So first things first, let's get into the actual topic of today. So what will it take? In my mind and all the things that I've been thinking about, I've been thinking that we don't have a program or a facility for people who are misbehaving, acting up, shooting, killing, drug dealing. We don't have a place that they can go and feel comfortable. We have plenty of things in our community going on. That's true. We have plenty of programs running. That's true. But in most of those cases, with most of those programs, what we see is a lack of participation by the people that we're actually trying to reach. And I think that comes up because so many times that we're trying to reach them is in our environment. We're trying to bring a person who doesn't understand the language into our situation and then ask them, why you don't understand the language? You've been here forever. Why you don't know you should behave? Why you don't know this? Why you don't know that? And unfortunately, they do not respond to you know better. That hasn't worked at all. When you talk about what type of facility it has to be an open air facility, a facility that's prepared for anything true, prepared for fights and violence, but also a facility that is allowing a lot of stuff that we wouldn't normally allow in other facilities, but that's because it's a transitioning facility. So most of the time, if you go out here and you want to try to get help and you are a violent person or you sell drugs or you into that life and you go into the facility where they're trying to help you, you don't even feel comfortable in the clothes you're wearing. Right then and there, you're not going to be paying that much attention like people think you are. You don't feel comfortable to speak because that's not how you speak. And there's nobody in there that actually talks like you or walks like you. It's just a bunch of people who used to walk like you and talk like you. And too many of us that have come out of that life have this persona that I've been there, done that. So you know what I'm saying? Each generation goes through something completely different. So yes, you have some understanding of what happened in your generation, but you might not really understand what's going on in this generation. First of all, social media itself has changed the idea that gangs is like the gangs of the past and violence is like the violence of the past and all this sexual stuff is like the sexual stuff of the past. That is an easy statement to say. But if you look at the actual truth about what the capabilities of social media are, then you can definitely say that's not true, because you could not see a shootout that happened 2 minutes ago on any device when I was coming up and being violent. You couldn't watch 22 of them, and that's for sure. And you couldn't watch them before you decided to go out and do your crime. You had to watch Scarface, and you had to wait for the violence. You had to watch it over and over again until you got up your manhood to go out there. It was a whole different scenario. You watch New Jack City. You watch all these movies, right? But it was a difference. You couldn't say, okay, it's Friday night. Let me see what's going on my phone and see a bunch of violence, a bunch of different stuff that's going to hype you up to end up committing that same situation and crime. So we know that there has been plenty of issues going on in the inner city community, and we know that it's not the same type of violence because they don't make any money. They don't have a purpose. They just kill to kill, rob to rob, steal to steal. There is just nothing. They come up empty and they go do it again. There is no plan or purpose for some of the actions that we see with some of the people. And yes, you could blame it on a lot of things. You actually could blame it on crack for sure, because if you think about somebody grandma smoking crack when New Jack City was out and all that was going on, how old is their child? And then how old is their child? So now you know when you go into McDonald's or you go into a store, you're dealing with a third or fourth generation of crack baby that may or may not have been genetically altered by what somebody did 3 generations ago. We still don't really know, and they don't really care, so they don't really study or try to help in that fashion. But there's so much out here mental health wise going on. It's got to be more than just crack or heroin or any other drug. It has to be that something else is happening, and we need to figure that out. Now, right now, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to play a couple tracks for you. I'm going to find some tracks to play real quick. You know what I mean? This is live, so this is how it's going to go live. We just going to find stuff and do stuff. You know what I mean? And you have to bear with that. Boom, boom. This is I got something from, one of my albums that you haven't probably heard before. It's off the album Few Make It, right? And this song is Make It Out. You know what I mean? It's called Make It Out. So I'm going to let y'all check that out while we pause and come back to talk about our subject today on Or Upsurd, which is how do we actually get a facility or process together to convert and transfer the violence in our community. Yeah, all right, that's off the album Few Make It. I have a new album out, but I just figured I'd play that joint for you because it's kind of like where we are right now. We need to be like, whoa, when it comes to this violence and the things that are going on out here today. You're listening to the Or Upsurd podcast, a new podcast by your host, Johnny Genuine. I'm going to start putting my 2 cents in out here, getting my videos out here, and start talking my stuff so maybe I can help. You know what I mean? To change some of the thought processes of some of these people, because maybe it's just who says it and how they say it. And maybe the ones that have been out here saying it just ain't saying it correctly. And I know that was broken English or bad English, but that's how I talk when I want to talk. I talk like that. So let's get into the subject at hand, which we're talking about how and why and everything that's going on with our violence in our community. So how do we create a place for people to go to transition? What kind of program should that be? And what should we do? And we're going to have to now go into part 2, which we'll have to talk about the actual facility and what it might entail. So when I think of the actual facility and what it might look like, it basically looks like a club. It looks like the environment that people like and enjoy themselves in, that they normally would go to. And inside of that environment is not alcohol, no, and we're not promoting drug use per se, no. But inside that environment is going to be a you go in their room, do what you got to do, come back out, and let me talk to you about the things we got to get you to talk about and get ready to do. Because unfortunately, if we wait for people to get clean and to get their minds right, we will not be able to affect the change. So we're going to have a space that actually has places where people are doing drugs and drinking and doing different things because they in a transition scenario. Now, I know people think people should just come in cold turkey quick. If you come in here, you better stop doing all that. And that never works. They go to these programs and keep doing what they're doing outside the program. They go for court, they go for whatever reason, they in there. But it doesn't work because they're not really in there in the mindset that they are in when they're committing the crimes and the bad stuff. They're in there in the mindset when they're not doing that stuff, so they're in there like, yeah, you right. Then later on they go and they turn up the 8 ball, and if you know, like I know, some of you don't know, you be like, yo, is that my ball? Because as soon as he drank that thing, it's gone. You know what I mean? It's the truth. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that Colt 45 commercial thing with Billy D, and he say, Colt 45 works every time. I'm telling you, there are people that if they drink one can of that, you be saying, how is that possible that they became a whole new person? But it happens. And it doesn't just happen with alcohol. It happens with all types of drugs that people do. It's not just the drugs that they smoke or put up this, or it's everything. It could even be sexual drugs that just they flip out when they get to the sex place. They just like, oh man, they just change. So if we want to have a facility that really is transitioning them, we need to catch them in them state of minds and try to talk to that demon and try to talk that demon down. Because I think we underestimate the flip and flop. You know, I'm going to call it that. We underestimate the flip and the flop. We underestimate that people flip and flop in and out of use. Instead, you thinking it's the same person when it's actually a different person. I use the word demon, but you can use whatever you want because it is not the same person. And our facility is going to have to start to see that person if you want to help that person. If you're never seeing that person, if you're never in that environment, then how you going to help them? If you always help them when they already are sober and they already are pretty much clean that day for that couple hours. Now, very difficult to talk to people though when they're under the influence. I completely agree with that one. You know what I mean? Even when I was under the influence, you don't say that to me, dog. I don't want to hear all that. You know what I mean? Because I'm trying to be over here chilling. I don't want to hear all that. But those that want the help might be willing to fight the good fight to come out. And maybe by having them in there for a little bit of time, and they brought the little bit of stuff they doing, they never get out there and go get the more and the more and the more, which is really what's happening with a lot of people. They just have no reason to stop when they start. So it's really that we need a facility when people start it and they're getting it in, that you can stop it and slow it down and help them in some fashion. I have no real true answers. There's no doubt about that. But I do know that what we need is something different. Some type of transitional place is different. Some type of program and thinking that's different, especially if we want to tackle that. It's very important that we be open-minded about what we will have to do to fix our people. I used the analogy earlier today and said, God allows us to sin because before he realized I have to kill them off. They won't listen to me. But then he realized, you know what, I'm going to have to allow for this in order to save some of them. Because otherwise I got to keep killing all of them. But if I allow for the sin and try to teach them inside of that, then they come out of it and stay out of it because they learn inside of that. Now, that's not in the Bible. That's my take on some of the ways that God helps us. That's my take on it. But I believe we can use that same philosophy here to say when they're in it, we're allowing it in order that we can bring them out of it. That's where I think it's most important. Okay, so I just really trying to come up with something really good, not like just something that's going to get me on the news or on social media. So it's really important that we do that. Now, when we come back, we're going to talk about the other side of what has been happening in our community with the violence and the different things, which is going to be the policing side and what changes might need to happen while we're transitioning people in order that our situation and program can actually work for our community. All right, so while we take another quick break, waiting on a caller, somebody to call in, we're going to just play another track for you. I got plenty of tracks, that's for sure. All right, that's my Ain't No Mountain High Enough, you know what I mean? We're going to reach them all. It's that motivation song. Trying to say, you know, there's nothing out here that you can't get through, even the subject we talk about today. You just have to be willing to put yourself out there, do what you got to do, kind of like me with this live stream. I have no idea if it's going to be good or not, but I got to do it, you know what I mean? And this is what we are going to have to do when it comes to fixing our community. Before we go on to the next part of it, I want to kind of get into this right here. Our main thinking with the people in our community that have been addicted to things and have been misbehaving is let's, let them go. Okay? So when they're in your family, right? They're in your family. You know what I mean? So they're coming, stealing your stuff, always you give them the money, they're not eating with it, they just see them again, you're like, oh my gosh, here we go again. You can't take it anymore. I've been trying to help this person forever. You know what I mean? I don't even let them come around me anymore. Right? And then you have parents who have thrown their hands up, with their kids, about this addiction and things like that. And I want people to think about this real good. I want you to be real clear, okay? That when you do that, when you do throw your hands up about your family's addiction and problems, you are really forgetting that now they have no chance to get off the drugs. Now they will never probably be getting off the drugs, and when they do, they'll be going back and forth, because it all started at home. And that's what nobody wants to accept. It all started while you were parenting. It all started under your watch. Now, I know you might be upset about that, but let's be clear, okay? Everything started with you and how you were doing what you were doing or not doing, partying, skipping it, not worrying about, he gonna have to learn on his own, or she gonna have to fend for herself, or they gonna have to figure it out, right? And you didn't know friends, you didn't know what they were doing, you hadn't had them on a schedule to play sports, you hadn't had them on a schedule to study, you didn't do any of that because that would be parenting, that would be hard work. They won't be listening to you. They won't be doing what you want them to do, and it will be frustrating, and you will have to still be a parent. There are millions of them out there that do it like that do it really right, that keep their kids away and off. Millions of them. Now, I come from a different household. I didn't come from a household with my parents parenting. My dad got divorced, you know what I mean? So I come from that side. I come from a different element. It allowed for me to have gaps and be able to do other things in those gaps. We have to take full responsibility for the things we have going on. I got a son out of wedlock. I got 2 kids while I'm married. There is a difference in those children that I can see, because when I was younger, I had no idea about parenting, and I can see that in my older child. In the younger ones, I have a better idea about parenting. I can see that in the younger ones. Does that mean my older ones going to be on drugs or something and my young ones aren't going to be on drugs? Not at all. What we're talking about is chances. Giving your kids a chance. Giving them the best chance. And you cannot shrug your part and hope they just learn on their own, or they just don't choose it. So let's make sure we put that little bit in there. Make sure the right people understand that in order for most of these people to be healed,
you would have to let them back in your house. You're going to have to let them back in the family. You're going to have to, without all them restrictions, you're going to have to start accepting these people during this transition program, and you're going to have to deal with some of the things that are going on if you actually want to help them. If you want to help yourself, keep your life clean, keep your life clear, cool. And I wonder how that's working out for you when you get older and think and wonder, did they ever make it? Where are they? How are they? So it doesn't work out for any of us that way. Now, obviously, there's some real violent, crazy people, and we couldn't do that for everybody. But there's a lot of people who don't do nothing else or don't do stuff like that. There's a lot of thieves. I understand you got that issue, true. But some of this stuff, they still in material stuff. Their life should be worth more than that. And we should have that in mind when we're trying to really help people. I myself have a problem with it too. I ain't acting like I can do it. I know we all need to do it, but I ain't sure if I can do it. I ain't sure if you can do it. But we're talking about what we need to do and what we need to do to fix it. We need to go out and get our family members that we know went out there a long time ago and that we just left out there, and there's nobody out there that cares about them more than us. So if you really want to help, if we do get this transition facility together, if somebody does put a good program together, I think everybody should be prepared to start bringing their family members back together. Those parents that have not talked to their kids about what happened, about why you let this and that go on and this and that, that's a healing part too. Have a conversation candidly about your fault in the whole situation. Don't just point out their addiction and things like that. All right? So that's a lot, but that's what we got to do. We got to go through everything. We got to put as much out there as possible in the time we have. You know what I mean? So we're going to move on to another part that's happening with the people who are out here doing different things that are wrong, is the policing side. The policing side has contributed to the situation by using tactics that are good for safety. I'm not even mad at you because I got kids and a wife, and if you had did that for me and my kids and my wife, I'm not even getting mad at you. That's just life, how it goes. I'd rather you come try to save my kids and my wife than for me to be like, okay, I'm going to make it there from across town. I'm coming, baby, I'm coming. Hold on, is he shooting you right now? I'm coming, baby. It's not going to work. So that getting rid of the police thing is idiotic. Okay, idiotic. How are you going to get to your family to protect your family? And don't have 13 kids all over the place. How are you going to protect them? So that get rid of the policing thing is idiotic. But what we do need to do is retrain the police to not kill people until they're absolutely sure. Is that possible? Don't know. But they need to have some sort of training and hesitation, right? That is instilled in them to say, I'm not going to kill this person. I'm going to get more police, and as many as we need to box them, and we're going to box them in. Maybe they make all that stuff for superheroes. Maybe you need some virtual net. You just shoot that joint out the gun. I don't know why they haven't made that for police yet. But why come you don't have a net? You just shoot out the gun and it just jumps on people, locks to the ground, and you ain't going nowhere. Now you don't have to worry about that person. You don't have to beat that person up. So now I just solved that problem right there. But seriously, getting back to the serious part is the training of the police is important. They're taking police out of the equation, not smart, because we don't do well policing ourselves. We don't do well stopping the immoral things that happen on our corners. We don't do well calling the police and saying, my neighbor is selling drugs out their house. So why would we do that? Who are we trying to turn crime into the thing that everybody's doing? Because that's the only thing that can happen when we aren't making the phone calls, we aren't witnessing and telling the police what they need to know to catch people. We aren't the people that they're afraid of, but they should be afraid of the community members when they do bad things. It should be the community members that they're hiding from, not the police. And that's how policing really works. So if it's anybody's fault, it's everybody's fault. Right? If it's anybody's fault, it's everybody's fault. You can't blame any entity, but you can blame every entity. That's for sure. So my take is, during our transition program, while we're working on these different things, the police need to be aware of who we're working with, you know what I mean? And when they pick them up or they see them doing something, they need to have a direct connect to say, hey, this is what's going on with this person right here. I know you're working with them. They still out here doing da-da-da. I'm going to let you keep working with them. But to just lock somebody up and say, okay, we got that one off the street. He won't be out here doing it no more. All right? And then by the time you got all the rest of them locked up, he's back out and the cycle continues. That is idiotic too. We have done that for a lot of years. And what did they say? Been there, done that. We've been doing that a lot of years. Jail should be an automatic, you must go to school. I bet half the criminals won't commit a crime. If you be like, yo, you gotta go to school. You gotta go to class. And when we say you gotta go, it should be a tying them up to a chair. If they gotta be in a straitjacket with their head like this and their ears open so they can't look down or do anything. We need to be rigid with that one. We need to be rigid with how we make people get knowledge, how we make people get educated. We need to be strong on that. And that is not something we're strong on. Now, I do believe, and I did get off a little bit, but I do believe that the police response to the people in the community is important. But I believe that mostly it starts with us policing our communities properly with morals and values and saying you can't do that. You just can't do that. And then say, why can't I do that? Because what you're doing there is showing our kids that that's okay. So you can't do that. Now, what you do in the privacy of your home, I'm not too sure police should be running up in there. Because grown folks got to have some place to do grown folk stuff. So if you're inside the house and not screaming out the windows, throwing beer bottles on the neighbor's yard, and all that stuff, then maybe that's just, not, you can't just run up in there. We don't care what they're doing. As long as it doesn't show up for our kids, as long as it's a private scenario. We've been putting too much time in on trying to find a little house that's doing this, the little corner that's doing that. We put millions of police work dollars into that one house. Then they finally get them. And then they get millions of dollars for the next house. And then they finally get them. And then they get millions of dollars for the next house that they find. Something's not adding up. And I ain't exactly sure if I can put my finger on it, but I would say that something's not adding up. So what we need to do is try to retrain the police in the community to be part of the process. But like I said, the plan of process needs to be more like one. The amount of programs and different things we have going on out here makes it very difficult to really figure out if we're helping, if we're hurting. And I respect we saving 10, 15, 5, 6. We saving somebody. I respect that. Church saves somebody. I respect that. There's no doubt about that. Because you can't stop that. You got to continue that. But what we're talking about today is a more larger scale approach to correct an entire community. And I think the last thing I want to talk about is money and finances. If we were to take money out of policing, if we literally were to take money out of policing and we did a program like this, then we could give people a check for getting right. Now, there are some programs that pay you, and those programs do pretty good with participation, graduation, right? So we know that kind of works. Some people can never work. So you can't expect them to work. What are you going to do for them? We would need to be prepared to carry some people for as long as they needed to in order to get them right. Yes, with some restrictions and with some intellect, we won't be stupid about it. But realistically, can you correct addiction without money? given to the addict without money for the addict to go to the family with the kids and be like, honey, here, I got a little money for you, boom, boom, boom. You have to empower people, right? And empowering people requires sacrifice, right? So if they don't do the right thing, that's us sacrificing that money, right? Until we can teach them to do the right thing. And you may say there are people that will never get right. And that is very true. But think about God and how long he's been waiting on you to get right. Okay? And then how he didn't give up on you. Right? So we're going to leave it there. We thank you for coming to another episode of Word or Absurd. And if I'm speaking the word, that's good. But sometimes what I'm saying, you might say, man, that is absurd. Okay? And I know the word is absurd. That's how you spell it. But absurd is the slang term, so we use that term because it just sounds cooler. You know what I mean? That's just the only reason. So we appreciate y'all coming, showing up, and showing us love. You know what I mean? We appreciate all that. We thank you for coming, and we hope you tune in. Make sure to get on all my social media at Johnny Genuine. There's only one Johnny Genuine, 111. You got the Phillies next, you know what I mean, situation. It's a bunch of us in the city, you know what I mean. Phillies next is a family. When you get in this family, you're in this family for life, right? And this family is about building you and growing you, not about getting money from you. So if you need something, you want to get with Phillies next so that you can come up on the come up for real, you know what I mean. And we try to partner and teach you, make you your own business because we want you to pay us for services. We don't want to have you not have any money and not be able to pay anybody anything. So we build you up at PhilliesNext.com. And you can check us out. If you need anything, you can get anything you want by just giving me a phone call and letting me know what your needs are or sending me an email or even a text message, you know what I mean, whichever way it works for you. All right, thank you for coming. We appreciate you. We hope you enjoyed the show. We want to continue to do what we got to do and flow how we got to flow. Everybody out there, keep yourself safe, you know what I mean? Keep your mind on God and the things that you're trying to do. Love your family. Love everybody because love is the power that you need every single day to win at everything you're trying to do.